I'm a total dad, right? I'm the guy who yells about the thermostat, about the door being left open, lights being left on. And well, I've got a new rule in my house. Whoever pays the biggest chunk of the electric bill gets 5 votes on what we watch on TV that night. The kid, 0 votes. Grandma and grandpa, even though they raised me, helped me along the way, spent a ton of time and a ton of money on my high maintenance ass, they also get 0 votes because, well, they're not chipping in for the house today. And frankly, if I said any of that in my own family, at the dinner table, well, let's just say that my family would go well beyond conventional warfare. However, if I pitched that exact same idea, just with $10 billion to my name, Silicon Valley would call me a great thinker. And there is a man who's floating that out there. He's number 302 on Forbes' billionaire list, and he runs the company that runs the checkout button on a few million online stores. And this man, by the way, paid himself $205 million in a single year, making him the highest paid CEO in the entirety of Canada. He once told his own managers in writing that they had to prove that AI couldn't do a job before they were allowed to hire a human being for it. And a couple of weeks back, this man got online and announced that your grandmother shouldn't be allowed to vote. But this isn't quite that Hegseth preacher vibe, right? This guy's name is Tobi Lutke, and he is the CEO of Shopify. You've heard of Shopify, they're all over the place. And I want to walk you through his actual plan because every time you hear the next point, it gets even worse. And the whole thing started over a zoning fight in San Fran. And there was a room full of mostly older residents showing up to a community meeting about 2 apartment towers. And Luca's reaction to the coverage of that meeting was, quote, retired, unemployed, unemployable, and useful idiots are the only people who go to these town hall sessions, end quote. So the next day, he went further. A pension, he wrote, is a guarantee. And a guarantee makes you a dependent. And dependents don't get to vote. Quote, just like dependents underage. He wants to leave the voting to people with, quote, a stake in the future. So I want to be very clear about the populations that he's talking about taking votes away from. 53 million retired American workers, people whose pension isn't charity. It's their own pay, deferred out of their own checks for 40 years. And he's reclassifying them as essentially children. And this man's great contribution to Western civilization is a damn shopping cart. And then, finally, he completely fleshed out this idea. Weight every citizen's vote by the amount of income tax they pay. You owe or pay nothing? You don't get to vote. Pay up to $100,000 in taxes, 1 vote. If you pay $500,000 or more, you get 5 votes. And this guy, a billionaire, Lutke, read 0 votes for the poor, 5 for the rich, and he responded with 2 words, good system. And I've got to ask, when these billionaires start saying this shit out loud, with names attached, not on a burner account, not hiding behind troll accounts like Elon does, what does that tell you about how much they fear consequences? Because as far as I can see, there are none. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But I want you to think about this. Do the math real quick on who gets zeroed out here. Because 40% of American households pay no federal income tax, roughly 76 million households. 70% of them are living on less than $75,000 a year. Not because of loopholes, because the standard deduction and the child tax credit wipe out what they would owe. The home health aide making $34,000 with 2 kids doesn't get to vote. But the guy clearing 7 figures because of inheriting a company from his dad gets 5. Now look, there is a positive spin to this. And I've got to give credit to this guy. Because it would create the one miracle that Congress has never been able to accomplish. If this were enacted for the first time in American history, billionaires would have an actual incentive to stop hunting and using tax loopholes. Yeah, somewhere an accountant named Gary gets the strangest phone call of his career. Hey, Gary, unwind that Cayman thing, all of it. Got to vote for this candidate. And look, for Lutke, none of this is hypothetical. It may not be exactly the way he says it, but this man already lives in this system. All right, 2022 Shopify shareholders approved a special founder share, guaranteeing him and his family 40% of the company's voting power on an ownership stake of about 6%. 3 separate proxy advisory firms told shareholders to vote it down, and it passed anyway. Why? Because it was carried in part by the super voting shares that he already held. And by the way, one of the shareholders that voted no was CalPERS, the California Public Employees Retirement System. Pensioners, the exact people he wants off the voter rolls because they already voted against him once. But look, these guys, they don't need these extra 5 votes. They already have them. I'll tell you how. The super PAC. All right, think about it. Citizens United 2010, money is speech, spend whatever you want. I mean, this cycle, American billionaires have already put more than $433 million into the midterms. Nearly 80 cents of every one of those dollars backs a Republican. Mega donors as a class are past $1.3 billion. And the House candidate who spends more money wins over 90% of the time. For you and I, voting costs us a Tuesday morning. But for these billionaires, these poor billionaires, it costs them a wire transfer. But it does come with a senator attached. So no, the vote weighting scheme, it's not some shocking new idea. It's because this is how billionaires already are running the country. And Lutke's plan is just doing it now cheaper. Because why keep buying elections at retail cost when you can write yourself the wholesale rate right into the Constitution? And don't skip what this man thinks of you on the other end of the deal, because this is the CEO who told his managers that before they hire a human being for a job, they have to be able to prove that AI can't do it. So think about it. While you work, you're essentially a headcount request rather than something that he could just throw to AI. And when you retire, you're a dependent who shouldn't get to vote. The only version of you that these people have any remaining use for is your card number at checkout and your labor hours, if you're even useful to them at all. By the way, we already did have this fight. The idea even has a name. It's called census suffrage. It's from the 1800s, and it took this country a century to bury it. The 24th Amendment banned tying the vote to any tax in 1964, and the Supreme Court nailed that door shut 2 years later. These guys should know all of that, but of course, I don't think they even read the Constitution just like our president. But if they did, if they looked at the Constitution, they'd look at it as if they looked at any old computer sitting there, a legacy system overdue for depreciation. And they've already migrated it to a new supercomputer, aka a super PAC. So frankly, I'm going to ask you guys to do something that they will never be able to buy. Your support, your like, your comment, your shares, your attention. It costs you nothing. It counts exactly the same no matter what you paid in taxes. And frankly, it is one of the last forms of speech that Citizens United has yet to put a price on.